For the first 2 to 3 years of my career, I was terrible at creating PowerPoint presentations. My presentations were not laid out well, and they were not easy to follow. As a result, my proposals didn't get approved. Once I discovered the use of grids in my presentations, that changed. Suddenly, my presentations were well laid out. They were easy to follow, and my ideas started to get approved with more regularity. More responsibility came my way. In today's video, we'll walk through a step-by-step process of how to use grids to improve your ability to create terrific presentations. So the first step in the process to create better looking slides is to start with a professionally designed slide. We're not professional designers, so go get some inspiration. And the slide that we're looking at here is going to be the slide that we will rebuild in a step-by-step manner today using a grid. Where I got this slide was from graphicriver.net, and the link to this specific deck is in the description of the video. And what you do is just find the slide that really you enjoy, and you take a screenshot of the slide. So the slide that we were working at is this slide here. All we do is just take a screenshot of the slide, get the full entirety of the slide end to end. Now go into your clipboard, and then you just paste it into a blank slide in a PowerPoint presentation right here. And we'll line it up and expand it out all the way across. We don't need design ideas. The next step is to put a grid on top of a slide. And the way I do that is use this add-in from BrightSlide. That's included in the description as well. Select guides, create guides, and we'll go add to normal view. And then you can choose how many rows and columns you would like in your deck. 12 by 12, 12 columns, 12 rows is a standard that professional designers use. Gives you more granularity in your design. A common starting point for people is a 3 by 3. We'll start here, and then we're going to increase our gutter size, and the gutters are the columns here. And we'll click OK. So of note here are our gutters, which are the blue columns and rows that you see. And then you have your margins, which are the orange, which go across the edges of our slide. These are the areas that give your slide white space. The brain likes order, so white space is very important, and the grid is the way that makes that easy for you to do. Now, as we talked about earlier, professional designers like to have a 12 by 12 grid. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our columns and rows. And with that many columns and rows, I can make the gutter size a little bit smaller. So we'll go 0.125 for both gutters for the column and the row. And we'll click OK. So just like that, we have our grid that we want. If we take a look at our slide that we brought in, now we can start to pick apart the design and see how the designer uses this grid to lay things out in a way that's easy to follow with the eye. The first thing that we do is we just start adding some shapes to see how everything is laid out. So we'll get our rectangle shape and put that above our image here that the designer used. I'm going to modify the shape real quick, and we're going to add transparency, usually about 50% or so. Now we can clearly see what's behind our shape and no line. And we will drag it over for the full length of the image. And then we'll start applying this to other parts of the design as well. So here is small text headline. Really makes use of this area. The title. See, we line it up here to the grids, and you can start to see how this takes shape. It goes all the way over here. Notice nothing is in the margin. Then we have our other text blocks. So again, the grid is guiding us to the space that he's using. There's that one. Next, block of text. And then our final block of text. Button there. Our final block of text goes here. And we begin to notice where the designer strays, like right above the box here, the text is lined up a little bit higher. So those are things that we can address in our design as well. And then he has these blocks here that make use of these areas. There we go. These little blue boxes represent the entire layout of the slide that this designer chose to incorporate on the deck. So that's the first step of the process, is breaking up the design by using the grids, and then we can make use of these shapes to create the design ourselves. Let's start with the picture. So we're going to take this blue shape, copy and paste it onto our next slide. What I've done is I have this image here, and the way that I got this image actually was just going insert picture, stock images in PowerPoint, and you get a host of images that you can make use of in your presentations. So I just did a search and found an image that I liked, which is this one here. So I'm going to copy this image, go back to our design, send it to the back, and now we can see where we want this image to reside as far as width goes. We want to bring this image over here where it's going to line up to basically right about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cropping this image. Picture format, I'm going to crop. And we're going to take it to about here. And then we'll get this side and we'll see where that runs out, right about there. And for right now, that's what I'm going to worry about. So what I'm doing with my image is I'm taking it full height of the slide. I like the images to go all the way from top to bottom rather than just where the image is cut out like the other design. So let's get rid of that box. Now we have our image in the shape that we need it to be. Next, we'll be working with the text here. So let's get these text boxes. Just hold down Shift and Control C to copy the boxes. And now we have those laid out where they were in the design. And we can start adding text into our shapes here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have laid out the deck here with text that I wanted to use. So I'm going to copy this text and bring it into this shape, right click and go Edit Text and paste in my text. And what we can do with the shapes are leave them a light blue for right now, because we're going to see if we want to move these around to maybe have it line up better in the overall grid as we make our way through it. So I'm going to repeat this process with the other text from the slide real quick. Okay, I've copied and pasted the 3 blocks of text into our slide. The next step that we'll work on are the title and the headline. So we'll copy those blocks over to our slide that we're working on, paste those in, and then I'll repeat that process by copying the text that I've created from the other slides into that one. So now I've copied in the slide title and the slide headline. We have that text laid out. The next part of our design are these shapes here that they have on the deck. So let's talk about how we can create these shapes. And those are really rounded rectangles where you modify the height and width a little bit. So we're going to go insert a shape in the rounded rectangle. We'll bring it over here and just focus on our height of the shape to begin with. We want to right click and go format the shape. We don't need the lines around it, so no there. We're going to do our 50% transparency so we can see what we're doing. We're going to bring it all the way to the edge. And now we're going to edit these points by clicking the little orange circle and modifying those to where they form the shape that's very similar to what we see on the slide. Just like so. And then you extend that out. So there's the shape that we're going to be utilizing. And we're going to want 3 of these shapes. So we're going to duplicate. And duplicate one more time. Make sure it's aligned properly. There we go. Now we have our 3 shapes that we can use on our slide. We're going to want those to go below our picture. So let's just click on the picture here and bring that to front. There we have it. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that these shapes are lined up with our text boxes. So they should be lined up on that grid line. So let's do this. So now those are perfectly in alignment, which means this needs to come down a little bit. Make sure that's aligned. And then finally, this shape and text box are aligned. So now we have good alignment between our text boxes related to one another, as well as these shapes that are associated to those text boxes. And alignment is critical when you're designing a good slide. Now the grid is giving us the white space that we're looking for. Next up are the circles. So that's another simple thing to replicate. We just insert our shape. We have our circle, and we will repeat the same process that we've done for the other shapes. We're going to format the shape, no line, give it transparency so we can see, and then we will adjust the size to make it the same as the shapes that are in the presentation here. That looks pretty good. Now we can Control-C that shape, and right there on the slide. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy that, duplicate it, and put it next to these. So now I want to make sure that these are aligned with one another as well. So I want this circle and this shape to be aligned. I'm going to go align, middle, and now they're perfectly in the middle of the shape. I'll repeat that same process with the other shapes. Middle, there we go. And the circles themselves, I want them to be lined up perfectly with one another here along the left side. So I'm going to arrange, align, align left. And now they're perfectly centered with each of the shapes, and they're aligned with one another. So we have the layout exactly the way that we're looking for. The other part of the design are the icons themselves. And PowerPoint has a wealth of icons. You just go Insert, Icons, and you can find pretty much any icon that you're looking for to add into your deck. So I'll cancel out of that. I have these 3 icons that I've already found within PowerPoint. So I'm going to copy the icon and put it into our design. And we'll do the same with the other 2 icons. And finally, that icon. And I'm going to follow the same process of alignment. So I'm going to choose my icon and my circle. And I'm going to go align, middle, and align center. And repeat that process with the next 2. Center, align, middle. And the final one. Align center, align middle. So now the next step is getting the colors the way that we need them. And the way that we do that is go to our slide that we're stealing from. I'm just going to insert a little shape here for the purpose only of getting the proper colors. So now we'll right-click on our shape and go Format the Shape. And for our fill color, hit our color drop down and go to eyedropper and hover over the gray that's used in this shape. Now we have the color that we're going to want to use on our slide. I'm going to bring that one over so we have it here. And now with this shape, right click on the shape and do our fill drop down and select, just to double check, that gray there. And we'll repeat the process here. There we go. And the final one right there. So now we have our grays. The circles were black, so we'll change the color just to the default black. Oops, that's our icon rather than our circle. Black and our black circle. And they look gray right now because of our transparency. So let's change the transparency to 0 for all of them. And the same with our shapes, make sure those are transparencies of 0. Looks like I have a different color here, so we're going to make sure that our color is what we want. There we go. Now we have our colors the way that we need them to be. And the final option is, let's get rid of the color that's in our text box here. So we will go no fill for our colors. No fill and no fill. So now we have our layout the way that we wanted to replicate from the professionally designed slide in our slide. And what we can do is go back to our guides and turn off our guides so we can see it without the grid. So now we have a professionally designed slide by following a grid. So the grid is really your key to laying out your slides in a way that they are easy to follow and make it a simpler process for your audience's brain to comprehend what you're discussing, or if you're just emailing them a presentation, they can easily see the content and get what you are trying to say, which is critical. Communication is a vital skill in the workforce, especially when you're in a virtual environment. So grids are a key to designing terrific looking PowerPoint slides. In today's video, we walk through a 4-step process that will enable you to create a professional looking slide. Step 1, go get some inspiration from some professionally designed slides or decks. Step 2, add a grid to your deck so you can see how the slide is laid out. Step 3, add your shapes to the slide so you get the layout correct. And then step 4, populate the shapes with your content and images. For more guidance on creating better PowerPoint presentations, you can view this video that walks through the 4 principles of design.